when you have damage to your brain, so NICO can tell you this, or the Cleveland Clinic, or almost any number of places that deal with brain trauma. What they've realized, if you were to take a brain scan of somebody who just had a VBIED and flipped their car, and they have a massive concussion, and you take that and show that brain scan, and then you also take somebody who's got jacked up sleep for the last 20 years, and that they have all these issues hormonally, and you show them side by side, most experts can't tell you which is which. They look identical. Right? So that's how much damage over time that it does to your brain. The best way I've heard it described is when you have these injuries, they add up because the cortisol adds up. When you have the lack of sleep, you're not recovering, and it actually starts to significantly affect your brain, particularly like your short-term memory, your ability to process information. Like my processing speed was dropped more than a third of where it should be. So I could still think through everything, but it just took me a lot longer to recall things and to get through things. But again, the best way I've heard it described is when your brain is in perfect health, it's like a symphony. Think of like 100-piece musical instruments all in perfect unison, and take your pick, whether it's Beethoven's Fifth or Merchant of Venice, whatever your favorite opera is out there in soft world. Ride of the Valkyries, how about that? It's in perfect unison. But what happens every time you get an injury, every time that thing goes astray, now the violin's like, the cymbals are ting, 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 and what eventually happens is 100 instruments not in unison. And that doesn't sound like a symphony at all. That sounds like something that makes you want to start a pistol. Like you don't want that going on all the time. But that's what happens over time. And there are some things out there, again, you'd have to reach out to either Care Coalition, NICO, whatever, depending on how bad your brain has gotten. There are some things that seem promising on resetting that. Turns out that each one of us have a very specific frequency that is yours and yours alone. And they've gotten to where they can figure out what that frequency is. And there's some studies out there now that suggest they have an ability to go through a process and reset you so that thing gets all back synchronized and you're back playing a symphony again. That sounds very promising. I have not gone through that myself, so I can't speak to it other than to read the studies. I've had a couple of friends who have gone through it and they swear by it. But the point being is the damage done to your brain by lack of sleep, by your hormones getting screwed up, by your cortisol going through the roof, by living over in sympathetic world, that thing goes from being a symphony, from being a cacophony of crap in your head that drives you crazy. So that's the best analogy I've heard to describe it.